All right. Yes, welcome to Pacific Northwest Utility Roundtables on focusing on managed charging here this week. So exciting stuff, and we have a great lineup, which I'll get to. But just a reminder, purpose of these meetings is really to bring the COUs of the Pacific Northwest together to share what we're doing and learn from each other and advance transportation electrification however we can. So quick, if you don't know, Fourth, we are a nonprofit trade association based in Portland, Oregon. We've worked with a lot of the utilities out there. We have 170 members, including a lot of the utilities, but also automakers, local governments, municipalities, tech companies, and charging companies as well. Just wanted to ping some other events that may be of interest to some of y'all. We have focusing on electric planes and electric boats, a couple other topics outside of the regular electric vehicle transportation. And then we have a specific program about rural electric transportation programs coming up on April 13th. So you can go to Fourth Mobility events to register and sign up for any of those. Also want to highlight the Roadmap Conference, which we will be hosting. Unfortunately, it will be virtual this year, again, due to COVID. But that'll be June 14th to 16th, and we have a great lineup that we're still building the agenda and event for that. So sign up, and if you have questions about interest in sponsorship or tickets or anything, you can contact Ashley D at fourthmobility.org. And just highlighting, you can always become a member of Fourth. We have some great utilities here that are on the call today that are members of ours and are also speaking. And then there's other ways to work with us too. We have a lot of projects that we like to partner with utilities to do. So if you any overlap in what you're trying to do in our mission, we would love to collaborate. So that brings us to the formal reason why we're all here today. Here's a rundown of the agenda, going through the welcome and introduction, and then we'll have John Jantz, Collaborative Efficiency, give an overview. We have some utility presentations. Travis Neal from Orcas Power and Light, Marcos Huerta from Salem Electric, Paul Dockery, and then some guest speakers from some charging companies, including Laura McCarty from Flex Charging, Eric Smith from Semiconnect, and then as I mentioned, we'll have some open floor time at the end for questions. So please bring those up and anything else that you might want to share. And John, are you on the call here?
Yeah. Can you enable screen sharing here?
Oh, is it? Are you not able to share at this time?
Host. Disable participant screen sharing.
Oh, all right. There we go. I think I gave you the ability to do that.
Cool. Okay. Just a sec here. All right. Hey, everybody. It's great to see. Can you all see that in full screen mode?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, great. Had to switch computers like 2 minutes before this thing started, so hopefully this all goes smoothly. Well, it's great to see a lot of familiar faces, some friends and colleagues. So my name is John Jantz, for those of you who don't know me. As you'll see in this presentation, I tried to spice it up with some pictures of mountains. I have a big love of mountains in my life and have a background in electrical engineering, spent way too many years in school, getting a few of those degrees. And I've been working in transportation electrification for a number of years now, and really dove in looking at grid impacts and a whole slew of things, battery industry, you name it. I love this stuff. So it's what I think about when I go to bed, and as I imagine a lot of you do as well. So I've been working on utility strategies for transportation electrification. So what is managed charging? I'm going to go through the why we want to do this, what it is, how we do it. And for those of you, if you want to follow along at home, Connor, could you put those links to the BEF papers in the chat?
Yeah, we'll do.
Thanks. So as a number of you probably know, we wrote a paper, gosh, about a year ago now with Fourth and BEF on transportation electrification. And then we did a synopsis for this study that E3 did, looking at the economic costs and benefits of EVs. So part of this presentation is going to be a summary of that and kind of the basics of what this is. And we're going to go through why do you want to do this? You know, why is it important? Why should it matter to your utility? And we're going to talk about what it is, so active load control versus passive managed charging, which, you know, we'll get into a little more of rates and some things like that. And other speakers are going to dive more into each of these topics. And then we're going to give a brief overview of how we'd actually build a program. So the question, why do we want to do this? From my perspective and a lot of folks in industry, you know, we've been waiting for EVs for years, right, to really make a big impact. And it's kind of been slow. And now it seems like all of a sudden, and I'm hearing from a lot of folks at different utilities that, hey, we were doing stuff 10 years ago and it was just crickets. And nowadays it's really changing in a hurry. And, you know, the big reason this is, as many of you well know, you know, soon we're going to have a lot more vehicles out there because it's been just hard to get vehicles and there haven't been many options. So, you know, hopefully these options will open up to a lot of rural areas. That's obviously been a pinch point for a lot of folks, but, you know, seeing a lot of pickups and SUVs and medium heavy duty and heavy duty fleet vehicles coming online in the next couple of years here. And in the next 5 years, like, things are really accelerating. So as utilities, you know, sure, all folks wearing that hat, you know, you think about risk a lot and you think of, hey, what are potential downsides and how do we mitigate that risk? And big things we don't want to see are, you know, and this happens in some places where somebody buys an EV on a block and on a street and then their neighbors get excited about it and they buy one as well. And so you see clustering on your distribution system. And then if everybody were to plug in right at peak, that might not be a pretty thing either. So we're looking at, like, okay, how can we mitigate these risks and how can we change behaviors before they really get started? So we do this from a clean slate. So it's just normal to have your charging managed. And that's really important from our perspective because, you know, as we all know, humans, we're creatures of habit. And once we start doing something, we don't like to change. So it's nice to start a good practice from the get-go. And doing this can really help, you know, diving in and building a TE program and building a managed charging of that can really help accelerate your efforts because it's kind of a snowball as you generate more revenue and, you know, just build on what you've done. So we're going to talk about the economic benefits that EVs bring to the utility and to your customers and how these benefits really grow when we manage charging. Oh, and bonus points if the end here, if anybody can guess where some of these pictures are from. I picked a number of ones local to the region and also around the world. So, all right, what are the economic benefits? This is pulling from one of the white papers we did with E3, which is this kind of a synopsis of what E3's study looked at, were the economic benefits. And they said that for unmanaged charging, each EV would draw about $300 to $800 in net ratepayer benefits. And this really climbs as you get, you know, as we'll see in a little bit for a pickup, and then they didn't touch on medium heavy duty or heavy duty, but these benefits really climb as you use more energy. But then if you manage charging, then that jumps considerably. So $830 to $1,000 in benefits, which is a decent change. And obviously, you know, your utility, it's going to vary. So we like to think about goals. You know, what do we want to do here? And, you know, the last thing we want to do is impact our customers negatively. And so any system we design, we want to make sure that they have enough state of charge in their vehicle to do whatever they want to do. But the E3 study in particular looked at moving load from heavy load hours to light load hours. And we want to, like I said before, prepare for this future and provide all these other grid services that managed charging can accomplish. So here's a little rundown on some of the costs, savings. They had 4 proxy utilities E3 did in this study here. Don't want to get too bogged down in this graph, but basically you can just notice that, hey, the benefits really climb when we manage charging versus compared to unmanaged charging. And here, once again, is just a better look at some of the benefits of managed versus unmanaged. And another thing they did in the study is they showed of what the economic benefits were per vehicle to the region, because people are buying fuel locally instead of buying imported oil. They're buying locally produced, clean electric fuel, which is fantastic for our local economy. So here we'll kind of look at what are the different types of a managed charging program. As we mentioned, there's passive and active. And so some examples of this, which some of the other participants will get into, some of the other speakers will talk about, is you can do this with rates. And you can offer a time of use rate. A lot of utilities are very familiar with using rates to influence behavior here. I've been doing it for a long time in places that are more capacity constrained, like in the Midwest, but there's definitely utilities doing this in the Northwest here. You can also, have a voluntary program where your customer receives some benefit and, use like a gamified behavioral system. So just different incentives that you might offer a customer for doing that. So that's more of on the behavioral end. That's not where the utilities actively managing. So that obviously is the name of active managed charging, where utility has load control capabilities. And you can implement this through a number of means. By far, the most common right now is through the charging infrastructure. There's folks looking at using AMI. There's a lot of hurdles there. I spoke with a guy from Siemens last week who they're working on a pilot with Con Edison to do this. There's some potential with intelligent circuit breakers or smart electrical panels, but those are still a little ways off on the horizon. And I would say the vast majority of folks doing this are doing it with chargers with intelligence built into it. So how do you go about building a program like this? And I think probably a lot of you can attest to this. The single biggest thing you need is buy-in from your leadership team, from your board, and from your general manager, CEO at your utility, and the whole leadership team there. Because without that, it's tough to do much of anything with a TE program. A lot of you on the call here, I know I've talked to, you scrape by with pretty bare bones program, and maybe that's how you do a lot of stuff, running pretty lean, but it's really important to get that buy-in. And that's not always easy. I think people are starting to see that, hey, this isn't just a fad that's going to fizzle out here, that this transportation electrification thing is real, and it can be a great benefit to our customers and to the utility. So once again, this goes back to some of the benefits we talked about early in this presentation of, hey, this helps grow your load as a consumer-owned utility. That then helps, it helps your balance sheet, and you can put that back to your customers, right? Like you're saving your customers money if there's downward rate pressure from more electricity sales. It helps your customers save money and reduce fuel costs when they go electric. So, and I would love to hear from all of you on this call of what barriers that you face and ways that we can help you. I love the part of this industry where it's very collaborative and we can all learn from each other. So I really enjoy that. Love to hear from you all on that. So this is taken from, if you're following along on that white paper that we wrote, this is down, I believe, in the early part of the appendix. And we went through the steps of like how you'd really dig in and build a program. And the first thing is knowing where these vehicles are. And, you know, that's, as many of you know, that's not always trivial. There's data maybe from Department of Motor Vehicles or, you know, a state agency that might have that. There's certainly limitations to that data. There's the potential to use and load disaggregation tools, but I haven't talked to anybody who's had great success with that yet. Love to hear from you if you have. So you find out where the cars are, because that's really important, knowing where they're at in your system. Second step, you know, that's what we're doing right here. Talking to peers. I think these discussions that we're going to have at the end of this are really valuable and learning from one another. And, you know, from these partnerships, we can see what other folks are doing and try and build a program. You know, we all like to follow good examples in this industry. So finding some good examples, learning from what they've done, you know, learnings they've had, both positive and negative. Then look at your grid constraints. You know, do you have distribution constraints like we talked about? Are you seeing some clustering already? Do you have capacity constraints? You know, kind of going into what should those goals be? You know, what sort of program do you want to design? And then using that data that you generated in the first part here, kind of dig more into looking at those goals in order to avoid, you know, any downsides on your distribution system. So yeah, and looking at, you know, like we talked about from E3 study, they looked at shifting from heavy load hours to light load hours. You know, maybe your utility is different. I've talked to Joe at Midstate, and they have a little different case, and so everybody's going to have a little different scenario, right? We're all unique, and you know, that'll kind of help you figure out like what you want to be doing here with this program. And of course, it's really important to have a business model that's going to work for you. So, and then you get out, and you know, hopefully you've already. In another part of this paper, we talk about how you build a TE program more generally, but a big part of that's building a team and having, you know, pulling expertise from different parts of utility. You know, you have a lot of different knowledge bases that you can pull from, you know, even in a small utility. So it's great to pull on that. I would say, you know, in building this, you know, you're going to hear from some vendors later on, but we'll have great expertise. The dust certainly hasn't settled here, and you know, it's good to think of like, how do you future-proof this? You know, what's a real good solution now, and how can I move this forward and not have stranded assets in the future? So let's see here. Yeah, and kind of on top of that is, you know, what communication protocols do you want to use? And you know, we'll discuss that more at length. And like I said, the dust hasn't really settled there. And as we look down the list here, like, it's really important to have, as we talked about, having that buy-in from management, because you're going to need budget to do this. You know, this doesn't happen for free. And as utilities are really good at doing, you start a pilot, you learn some things from your pilot, build upon that, and then launch a full-scale program. Well, that's all I have. I look forward to hearing more of what the other speakers have to say. If you want to get in touch with me, with my phone number here and email. And I always just love having conversations with folks and learning from y'all and figuring out ways we can move the ball forward here. So thanks a lot. Here, I'll pass it back to you, Connor.
Great. Thanks for that presentation, John. And as you mentioned, would definitely love to hear from folks what their barriers and challenges are. So when we get to that open floor time at the end, please share. So next we have Travis Neal of Opalco.
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Thank you, John. It's been, you know, we've worked together in the past, so it's good to hear and learn a little bit about what you're doing still. We definitely have a lot to learn at Opalco. We're sort of in the early stages of rolling out some of these EV programs, and I'll talk a little bit about one that we're doing most recently right now. So Orcas Power and Light, just a little brief background. We're up in the far northwest corner of Washington State. It's an island archipelago. We serve power to 20 islands out here. And EVs are wonderful for the islands because one side of the island to the other tip of the island, at max is 25, 30 miles. So not a lot of range anxiety like you may have on the mainland. We've seen tremendous growth in EVs over the last 5 years out here, especially in the summertime. We tend to be heavily on seasonal residents. Maybe folks have a second home up here or a summer home. So in the summertime, we certainly see a lot of higher end Teslas and such out on the roads. But really what we want to focus on is the normal folks that live out here and getting EVs into their hands, because EVs just make total sense on the islands here. They can save our members a ton of money, and we're really interested in learning how to integrate those into our grid and our power system, because they are certainly going to be a big part of the future for us. So in combination of one of the programs I'm going to talk about soon that we're just rolling out, we're also working on a pilot program with our billing software provider, NISC. They're a cooperative billing software provider. If there's other co-ops on the call here, several of you probably use NISC. There's sort of two major billing providers. So we're in the midst of doing that so we can integrate those chargers directly into our billing software, where your charger can show up as a separate line on your power bill. And then we can sort of build a more robust EV incentive program around that. We're still in the process of that. It's kind of been a long process. So we're still working on that. And so moving forward with the project that we're doing now, in conjunction with that, we took advantage of a Bonneville Environmental Foundation Zero Emission Vehicle Innovation Fund grant, I think it was called, that provided $50,000. And our project was community engagement. We've got one EV dealership in the county, and only one, and they only really sell used EVs. So that was a good opportunity to sort of target EVs towards the common member out here to get more EVs in the hands of those folks. So I don't have any slides. I can share one of the marketing materials we've completed, and this will tell a little bit about the program. Are you guys able to see that?
Yep.
So our marketing folks called it the EV Happy Deal. So when you buy a used EV at this Island E-Cars, is the only EV dealership in the county, you get a full Happy Meal deal of things. So we're giving away a free smart home EV charger, covering installation costs, paying for tab fees, sales tax. We're covering if the sale is over $16,000. Washington State actually provides an incentive rebate for sales tax below $16,000. And if the member is part of one of our low-income programs that we have at the utility, we'll cover the first year of charging, which turns out doesn't come to that much money on average, but it sounds nice, and it's just one more benefit that we're putting out there for the program. So we just rolled this out. One of the interesting challenges we found was it was easy to find the partner. Wonderful that we received the funds. Finding the right smart chargers that we wanted was a bit of a challenge, and it was also difficult because we're sort of also part of this pilot program where we're trying to integrate a certain type of charger into our billing software, and so it's kind of the cart before the horse. Was, do we want to wait a little bit to see if we can figure out this pilot first and then buy the exact right chargers that we need to integrate. But as with most pilot programs, it's it takes a while, especially with software development as well. And there were some expenses related to that, which didn't really make sense based on the size of the grant that we received and how much benefit we were going to be able to provide to the members out here. So we did end up going with some smart chargers that have the right open point charge protocol that we'll want in the future that our billing software would be able to handle. So we're hopeful that when that does come to fruition, we'll be able to integrate these chargers. We're hoping to give at least, it looks like 30 to 40 smart chargers out with the purchase of any used EV. So that's a great benefit. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to integrate these and then kind of move down the road a little bit more along the lines of what John was talking about and developing a little bit more robust EV charging incentive program at the utility. But so right now we're kind of going down multiple paths all at once. And let's see, I can stop share. And with that, that's really all I had to share with our program and kind of what we're doing rolling forward. And if anybody had any questions, I can answer that or, yeah.
Great, thank you, Travis. Yeah, we'll do the other two utility presenters first, and then we'll move to, I'll open the floor for some questions there. And then if you have questions in the chat, you can go ahead there. I see one just popped in. Travis, did you want to answer that from Rob?
Oh, yeah.
Clarification.
Ivy is going to pull OCV usage info into the system, and Opalco will be able to bill off that. Yeah, and so we would be able to identify specifically the kilowatt hours that are being used by that charger. Exactly. And so in that way, we can create a more robust, managed charging incentive program. So if we wanted to control, peak shaving, things like what John was talking about, we would be able to identify exactly when we're using it, what kilowatt hours we're using it, and incentivize folks that way. Is there a reason the program focused on used EVs? Twofold. One, the only EV dealership in our county is a used EV dealership. So that's really the primary reason, but also the other primary reason was the BEF grant that we were going for really did have a focus on how can we help the low to moderate income members in the rural communities. So, and as I mentioned, we already have a lot of sort of new EVs out here that we definitely see a lot in the summertime when all the houses get filled up and there's a lot of tourism going on. So focusing on incentivizing EVs in the price range of $5,000 to $25,000 probably a max, really is sort of part of focusing on the low to moderate income members out here. What chargers were selected for the Happy Deal? We went with the Siemens VersaCharge Smart Grid chargers, level 2. And the OCPP protocol was 1.6 that we had that iView wants to is going to be able to integrate in the future. So we went with that. We purchased just 15 of the chargers at first. So we have 15 chargers now. And we're kind of waiting to see, as those go out the door at the dealership, and also more information comes in, we might, buy 15 more of those, or we might pivot, there's nothing barring us from pivoting to a different charger model as well. Why focus time of use charging EVs rather than on all customers' electricity use? Well, we certainly do that as well. But specifically, this is just sort of one aspect of what we're doing in relation to members' electricity use. Partners in gaining the grant funds, Connor, right? I worked with Connor on the application, actually. We had an idea for what we wanted to apply for with this community engagement grant and got in touch with Forth. And Connor was able to provide a lot of good feedback on the application and, points that we might want to focus on with it. So thank you, Connor. And let's do, have you evaluated the Clipper Creek ZEF smart chargers? Yeah, I actually called Clipper Creek, and at the time, interestingly, they just told me that they didn't have any smart chargers available, and that they didn't have a model that would meet the criteria that I was laying out for them. So that was, interesting. And we actually are talking with ZEF. We do communicate back and forth with them. So And they, I think they just sent us a charger maybe like a month ago so we're working to see if that is maybe one of the possible chargers that might be able to integrate as well. Thanks for those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. Also, yeah, great working with you on that project. Excited to see it taking form. All right, let's go to Marcos then next.
Okay, thanks, Connor. I'm going to do, let me know if you can see the full screen here.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, thanks. Okay, my name is Marcos, and I work at Salem Electric. We're a utility provider here in Salem, Oregon. We provide service to mostly West Salem and about half of Kaiser, Oregon. And on our service area, it's pretty small. It's 17 and a half square miles. So even in this small area, it's not uncommon to see an EV, everywhere you go. And according to Oregon Department of Energy, the last count were 400 EVs just in our service territory. So it's not too surprising since we do have a lot of commuters here in Salem and Kaiser. So over the past 2 years, we've had numerous members that have reached out to us with questions about electric vehicles, specifically when is it that they should be charging their EV. So in response, we created a member EV advocacy group to facilitate conversation between current EV owners and us. That way it would help us to identify how we can better help our members, who either currently have EVs or are exploring that option. So after discussion with our EV advocacy group, we decided that a residential charger incentive would be the best place to start. So in July of 2020, we introduced the incentive to our members. So one benefit of offering incentives for residential charging is that Salem Electric will have access to the members' charging data through ChargePoint's dashboard. So when the members register their EV with ChargePoint, they sign up to share their charging data with us. So since there are numerous chargers on the market, we did go with ChargePoint, with ChargePoint Home Flex charger for two reasons. The main one is that its Energy Star rating is consistent with all our other programs that we offer for incentives. And also it's compatible with virtually every EV out there or every major supplier. So the charger retails for $699 and we offer a $500 member incentive. And how we did it, we purchased 24 chargers with two different outlet options. So the two models that we offered for the incentive are the NEMA 650 and the NEMA 1450. So given that this was a new program for us, we thought it would be helpful to have the chargers in stock at our office as we work through program logistics. And as of today, we just have two chargers left. So now almost 8 months into the program, we are receiving data, but it is minimal. With the data we have collected, we are happy to see that the members are already charging their EVs outside of our peak demand hours. So far, 22 members have registered chargers through our program over the past 7 months. So it's too early to make any assumptions from the data at this time. We anticipate the program will continue to grow. Future considerations are identifying members who have EV chargers who didn't go through our program, and incentives for commercial members who install level 2 chargers at their business. So when it's safe to return to ride and drive events, we plan to partner with local dealerships to provide members the opportunity to check out an EV without the pressure of a salesperson. So as we continue to collect data, we will also explore options for an EV time of use rate. So that's all I have for my slides. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for going through that, Marcos. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and open it up if there are any questions specific to Salem Electric program for Marcos, you can put it in the chat or feel free to chime in on the microphone.
Hi, Marcos. This is Eddie Littlefield with the City of Forest Grove. I do have a question for you. You mentioned that you have a commercial incentive for your commercial customers. What's that incentive?
So we don't have an incentive for commercial customers yet. So that's in the works. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of what your plan is there?
Just, nothing on paper. We're thinking of, having an incentive for the actual charger as well. Either that or, help with the install cost. But yeah, we haven't decided anything concrete yet. Yeah.
I think there are a couple other utilities on the call that do have some commercial programs. If there's anyone here that has a program that they're currently offering and want to provide input into Eddie's question, that'd be great.
This is Thomas. Oh, I was going to say, this is Thomas from CPI. I know we just launched a commercial program, but we just launched it. What we're going to be offering is $5,000 or 50% of the cost, or up to $5,000 or 50% of the cost of the commercial chargers. They have to meet, a bunch of criteria and everything else like that, but that's quick and dirty.
Yeah, here, City of Ashland, we offer an incentive for commercial electric accounts for charging equipment. There's not a lot of requirements, but it's $1,000 for the first charger, or up to $1,000, and then an additional $500 for up to 4 more. So that's the current incentive that we're offering. Thanks.
Hi, this is Coral Miller from Mason 3 in Shelton. And we offer incentives for either a wall-mounted or a pedestal-mounted charger. We don't actually differentiate between residential and commercial. If a commercial customer wanted to install a wall-mounted charger, they could. If a residential customer wanted to install a pedestal mount charger, they could. But the wall-mounted charger, we incentivize up to $500, and the pedestal mount charger, we incentivize up to $1,000. And we've had this incentive in place since almost last year at this time, and we still have yet to have a pedestal mount charger come through our system.
Great, thank you for sharing, Thomas, Stu, and Coral. I saw another question come in from Greg Sullivan. I believe this is for you, Marcos, that members are free to charge whenever they want, but they're encouraged for low load hours. Is that correct in your setup?
They have free reign. They can charge whenever. We haven't specifically said, hey, try to charge during this time. So, but with the data we're collecting, we're seeing that they're doing that on their own anyways. They get home, so they're the typical, work schedule, gone during peak hours. So they just charge at night for the next day. But yeah, if we see more data come in that shows, hey, people are starting to charge during peak hours, then that's what we want to gather that, have enough data that would support the decision to go to a EV, tiered charging schedule.
Great, thank you for presentation and answers. One more utility lined up. Paul, do you want to take it away?
I will take it away. I want to warn you, I'm passionate about 3 things when it comes to electric vehicle charging. And I will take any criticisms about them, but I will defend my positions emphatically. The first is the ownership of electric vehicle public charging programs by utilities, especially in rural communities. We are a small rural community in Clatskanie, Oregon, serve the towns of Rainier, Clatskanie, and Westport and some surrounding areas. And I am an emphatic, if you are a rural community, think about owning your own EV public charging program. The second is a concept I'm going to pitch here pretty hard, which is a way of doing passive managed charging, which is a charging speed fee. I am less a fan of time of use energy rates and more a fan of providing a price signal on the speed of charging when doing electric vehicle charging. And then the third thing is outlets, outlets, outlets. I have a very hot take that probably deserves some more nuance. And that is that a level 2 charger is nothing but a payment kiosk and an extension cord. So if you don't need the payment kiosk, you probably don't need a level 2 charger. And there is the nuance there that if it's got some managed charging functionality and it can help you, and you have something like demand charges and charging speed fees, that maybe it's a value add for both you and your customers. Those are my 3 passionate areas that I'm going to pitch pretty hard. The first one, and I'm going to start the clock. So that was all pre-time. So I got 6 minutes left is what I'm guessing here, okay? So the first one I'm pitching pretty hard is the ownership by rural electric utilities. So we've installed electric vehicle public charging infrastructure at our office in Clatskanie, at Clatskanie PUD's headquarters. And we've installed some at Rainier, at this transit center. And what we installed, we own, and we installed DC fast chargers, level 2 chargers, because I do think there is value. Well, while I am not an advocate for level 2 chargers because they are just a payment kiosk with an extension cord, there are use cases for having the payment kiosk for motorists that you don't have an ongoing relationship with. So we installed a level 2 chargers at both locations, but only a single one with the dual whips. And then we installed outlets. We installed outlets for commuters. And I'm going to talk about commuters in a little bit, but I'm going to start next. So I'm a huge advocate for, and you can bombard me with questions. I really think it is ownership by the electric utility is both efficient for you, for the motorists, and for your customers. The next thing though, and this is one I really think fits actually the best with this conversation, it is charging speed fees. So because we own the equipment, we had our board adopt rate schedules that were for the end users. So if a motorist comes to our payment kiosks that also provide electricity, we have to develop rates for that motorist in that single use. So we thought through this by a cost of service perspective in ways that would provide the motorist the right incentive structure and provide us the confidence for the rest of our customers that we aren't subsidizing motorists that are using our equipment going through our service territory. We wanted to make sure we weren't, providing any subsidies to them. So we included a charging speed fee and equipment fee to send the price signal that if you want to charge faster, it costs more on a fixed cost basis, not on the energy component. And John mentioned in his opening remarks that it's way easier to set the right baseline at the beginning of a program than to try to change behaviors. And that's something we have found, I think, a lesson learned from electric rates in general, that we're going towards more base fees, demand charges, and energy components in our retail electric rates anyway. So at the beginning of our electric vehicle charging program, we really wanted to emphasize this idea, like a demand charge, but in a way that communicates effectively to motorists that if you want to charge faster, there's a fixed component of this charge that increases. So a level 2 charge, we price in $2.70 per charge, and that's for the equipment, which is what differentiates an outlet from a kiosk, is the kiosk does cost a little more. So that's equipment and a charging speed fee. And that's a translation of our demand charge, like our commercial customers pay, into what your component for your charge would actually be if we applied that to electric vehicle charging. Charging speed fees, I'm a huge advocate. I'm 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, so I'm going to move on, but ask any questions. I love the concept of a charging speed fee. I think it's way more intuitive than a demand charge, and I actually advocate for it as a way to start the conversation with your retail customers that the faster service you want at your house, the more expensive it's going to be for us to provide that service. Okay, and the last one is outlets, outlets, outlets. So I communicate our program as if for a motorist going through our service territory, it makes a lot of sense to have a payment kiosk, an end user point of sale service where you can give me a credit card and pay for your electricity. But if I have an existing relationship with you through my billing cycle that I have, and I send like NISC, we use them too. I send bills monthly. And if you come to the same parking spot, for work every day of the week back before the pandemic. Kind of awkward actually to pitch this during a pandemic, but you can just subscribe. I'm not going to meter your energy. I think that is another area where Opalco highlighted the energy actually is not that that expensive, and it's fairly predictable. So I can estimate how much energy you're going to use. I actually apply a retail electric service charge to my expectation of what you're going to use. And then I just do it fixed. I don't meter individually, and it saves a lot of cost for both me and my motorists. So we just, and I am a subscriber. The other person from Class County PUD also on this call, Ian, he's a subscriber. We've continued to pay this monthly fee because we work at the utility, even through the pandemic when we don't use it as much. Okay, so the reason, one of the ways we got to this was both, we wanted to manage our peak risk. The peak risk is, like John was saying, one of the things that actually makes electric vehicles a danger to us in our service territory. So we wanted to manage that. And we wanted to serve our customers effectively. So on this US Census Bureau's website, they have this feature where they tell you how far people in your service territory commute. And the thing you can conclude from this is an outlet, a 120 volt outlet, works really well to serve the majority of customers that work in our service territory. So we have a program where if you're a big commercial workplace in our service territory, we will work with you to actually install this equipment, install the outlets, and then get subscribers from you so that you can, we manage that relationship, not you. I'm running out of time. We have used the BEF grant to actually, we're going to install this type of concept at our high school. I think high schools, middle schools, where you have teachers that commute to these distances, they can use 120 volt outlets a lot of times because they are within this range, 4 miles per hour. So in an 8-hour days, you can get about 30 miles of charge out of the, in it to recover that commute to school. I think it's a really efficient way to provide this type of service. I ran out of time. I'm going to go over BEF. Great. They provided us some incentive to be able to do this. And the other thing on the managed charging aspect of it, one of the passive, like I think we're very innovative, but we aren't that technologically advanced because we're a very small workforce. It's a passive way to do this. And workplace charging, it really helps mitigate the peak risk of having a lot of electric vehicle usage in your service territory, especially at 120 volts, because you bring down that peak demand requirement and you spread it over hours, and it makes for a more efficient use of your distribution system. Lastly, I'm just going to pitch this. We have a podcast, and we talked about EVs a couple weeks ago, Public Power Underground. It's great. Ian's on it too. And you can find me there, here, anywhere. I'll answer your questions. Very passionate about this. I got it done in just a little bit over time.
Paul, thank you very much. The energy was great. I'll count it. I'll say you beat the timer, even though you went like a second over. No, you're great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, one question came in from Travis in the chat. Was the subscription fee for the outlet charging, and do you have to manage non-subscribers using the outlet?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So for the 120 volt outlet, I believe the cost is like $25 a month. It's really cost effective. We also have a 240 volt program. It hasn't been installed yet, but we priced it at around $60 a month. And that means you can go like 100-mile commute round trip and recover that in a 240 volt service. But there is the question of like, how do you control access to this outlet? And in a lot of ways, like it's pretty simple because you can steal my energy and it's not going to cost you that much. But we anticipated this question. We want to install it at a school, right? And you don't want it to the outlet, right? You're going to have a bunch of kids sitting around charging their phones. So we are developing a little switch. It's an RFID controlled switch where you could you got the card. It only works with your card, and you just turn it off and on. And if you don't turn it off at the end of the day, there's a timer. So we're developing like this little switch so that you can control it. This is in development, but it works pretty well. I just got to get it, finalized and approved by UL so we can actually install it at the school. Low cost. This whole thing, it's just an outlet, regular 120 volt outlet and a switch. It's like $100, way cheaper than a level 2 charger. Way less risk on the demand side.
Thanks, Paul. That's super interesting work y'all are doing. Any other questions for Paul before we move on? And just a reminder, we'll have time at the end too for more conversation. We have a question from Todd Williams. Oh no, Todd Williams got a question about coffee there. Mike Smith had a question about
Stumptown. Stumptown's good stuff.
There we go, Portland represent. Mike said, any concern that the outlets will hold up?
Not at all, really. I do this now. Outlets, it's a 20 amp outlet. I actually think they only pull 12 amps during the charge. This is a robust technology. I don't have a level 2 charger installed at home for my car. I just use a 50 amp outlet. That's one of the things actually about the program I like so much. It's more robust than a level 2 charger. We have level 2 chargers as part of our program, and actually they break down, the outlets don't. And it's there's more technology built in, because I use it flippantly that it's just an extension cord and a payment kiosk. There's more in there that can fail. We have the credit card readers and they can fail sometimes. So the outlets are more robust, they're more fungible, and I have to invest less. It's actually less capital intensive for me as a rural utility. I had to invest less to get a bunch more opportunity for charging in my service territory.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we're going to switch gears just a little bit. Thanks for all the utilities. Going to open it up to a couple vendors. And I think it's a good mix that we've had. Some of the utilities on the call have all used different options, went with different level 2 providers. So I'm going to open it up first to Laura at Flex Charging.
Great. Let me know if this is coming through. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Great. Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone, and listening. It's been great listening to the utilities and all of the innovative things that they're doing. We're going to present in 8 minutes a very different way to do managed charging, and that's through the vehicle. So all of the things that we've been talking about have really been looking at this as utilities. I used to work for a utility. We tend to think of everything through the charger because that's how we think. But I'm going to ask you to kind of flip that on its head for the next 8 minutes and think about turning the EV into a virtual submeter, because that's what we can do. So we all want to do this sort of bridge across the divide here between the morning peak and the evening peak. Especially we want to tame that evening peak. We want to fill in that trough with solar if we can, depending on where the vehicle is and what's available at that location. We want EVs to be a demand flexibility asset. They can be that today, really quickly, really easily, really cheaply. And then the utilities, it's really just up to the utilities to come up with creative ways to use this capability. It's really powerful between data and actually sending signals to stop and start charging. You have so much control over how we can use EVs to become grid assets. I'm not going to go into a lot of how it works because 8 minutes. But basically what we do is we have a cloud service which communicates over APIs to the OEM cloud services. And those get the data from the vehicle as well as send signals to the vehicle to tell it when to start and stop charging. And the algorithms, all the sort of, the gen ops that we would do on the generation side, this is kind of the load ops. All of that algorithm is in our managed charging platform. We do have a phone app. The phone app is really there just primarily to allow the user to set up some constraints like their usage schedule, their emergency charge, SOC, things like that. But really everything works here cloud to cloud and from the automaker's cloud to the EV. We've had some data pilots, so I'm going to take you through some data, and I just want you to know where the data is coming from. So it's coming from what we call our organic drivers. These are just drivers who find us in the App Store and Play Store, install the app, and let us manage their charging. We also have a pilot with Rocky Mountain Power. We're in phase 2 on that. We did do a pilot with Peninsula Clean Energy. We are readying for phase 2. They really want to wait until COVID is over to carry on with phase 2. We just started a pilot with AGL, which is an Australian utility, and we literally are signing up drivers starting next Monday. So that one's just starting. And we did do an R&D project with EPRI. So we look at the data. It's so rich, it's so detailed. We can tell what happened. We have 24-hour load curves by charger location type. So we can see, you know, none of this is too surprising. Residential charges in the morning and evening, workplace charges in the middle of the day, public in the middle of the day, corridor in the middle of the day. So, you know, we can see where people are charging by the charger location type. But unlike coming at this from the charger, we can also see the vehicle. So we see all of the driving information. We see the SOC at various points in the trip. So we can ask questions of the data like, where are EVs when their SOC is low? And where's the closest charging infrastructure to that? And might that be a place where maybe we need to put more charging infrastructure because we see that there's a lot of EVs that are low there and they don't seem to charge. So you can ask a lot of fascinating questions of the data that includes not just charging, but also driving, SOC, battery health, things like that. So what does this mean to utilities? Well, first of all, the data is, as I mentioned, super deep, super rich. Here's a graph that looks at managed and unmanaged charging sessions and really looks at the power. What we're trying to do here is show the impact of managed charging. So those managed charging sessions have been distilled down into a representative 1 EV. So you should be able to multiply the power number on the y-axis there times however many EVs you have in your service territory. And that should give you an idea of the power needs based on managed charging. The brown line is unmanaged charging. So you can see clearly we're having an impact because we're keeping that evening peak way down low compared to the unmanaged sessions. And this is just residential. I did not include in this graph any of the public charging or workplace or anything. This is only residential charge locations. The other thing we can do, obviously, is we can keep the cost down. We can keep the cost down for the drivers as well as for the utilities. So this graph here, the green bars are basically the 3 different quarters of last year. And we look at different rate schedules and how much energy is going on those rate schedules. So how much energy is going on is on the right in the red. And then the cost savings is in the green bars. And you can see that based on what rate schedule the utility is on, there are significant opportunities for savings. So for example, if we look in Q2, that electric vehicle A rate, I believe that's PG&E's rate, you can see there that when we manage the charging, we're able to save the drivers up to 50% from just plug-in. So if they had charged right at plug-in and we had not stopped the charge at plug-in time, we can save them about 50%. It depends on which quarter of the year we're in. Sadly, what you can also see, though, is most of the energy in the red bars, those big long red bars, are going in on flat rate schedules where there is no opportunity for cost savings. So that's where we have to kind of get creative. If you have a utility with flat rate schedules or block rate schedules, how do we incent drivers in other ways? Can we do bill credits? Can we do, you know, rules around charging that say something like, if you don't charge during the evening peak 80% of the weekdays of the month, we'll give you a $5 bill credit. It's not a time of use rate, but it sort of approximates one. And then another way that we look at our impact from our data is, again, we look at the 24-hour load curves. So we're looking here on the top, that's the load curve net after we did managed charging. The bottom is all of the hours where we would have had that additional energy in those hours had we not moved the charge. So for example, in hour 17, you can see over this time period, 2,329 kilowatt hours of charging, but you would have had an additional 1,200, but we moved that and we moved it to other times of the day away from hour 17. So we're just trying to show lots of different ways that you can see the impact of using the EV to actually do the managed charging. The other thing you can see on impact is you can see tailpipe emissions. This is the driving side again. So you can't see the driving side if you come at everything from the charger. But when you come at it from the vehicle, you can actually watch where the vehicle is driving, and you can apply things like the EPA standard rates for NOx and formaldehyde and all kinds of different particulates. And you can apply those by zip code, by state, by whatever, because EVs not only save emissions globally, i.e. CO2, but they're also saving all the tailpipe emissions locally in every single community through which they drive. So we've learned a lot. We've had 18 months of pilots, lots of different utilities in different parts of the country. We've learned that there is a lot of level 1 charging. I think someone mentioned it already. We saw about 30% level charging in the Bay Area with Peninsula Clean Energy, and that's just because of old housing stock, and it costs a lot of money to go to level 2 chargers. It's not the charger, it's the cost of the panel that needs a regrade, right? So lots of level 1 charging, and there's no reason that people shouldn't be able to do level 1 charging and get all kinds of incentives, because we can see the charging through the vehicle. We can see it every 15 minute by 15 minute. Drivers won't always tell you what you need to know, so we need to train them. They still need a lot of training on this new fuel that they've got called electricity. Telematics data it's deep and rich, but it needs a lot of analysis to make some of the graphs like what I showed you. And there are a lot of regulatory and policy implications in terms of who owns the data and can you use the data for claiming things like low carbon fuel standard credits. So there's a lot of work still to do. But that's it. I hope I kept it to 8 minutes, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Laura. That was really great. One question came in from Greg Sullivan. Is there an override option, i.e. a time of day that you do not have flexibility?
There are so many override options. We allow drivers to override at the vehicle level, at the charge location level, for all their vehicles, for all their charge locations. We always put the driver in the front seat, and I'm sorry for that pun, but if the drivers don't trust this, they're not gonna let us do this. So they have to trust that we are always going to keep their needs first and the utilities' needs second. So we give them lots of different ways to opt out.
Great. Oh, Juan, you have a hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to unmute myself. I just had a couple of questions. Some of the studies that I'm seeing shows that the coincident peak is 1.5 kW, which seems slow to me, but it seems like there's a lot of data supporting that. From your study, what is the coincident peak that you're seeing? If it's 1.5 kW, then for utilities that are long on power, like EWIP is, for example, then that peak impact does not seem as bad as originally thought. So then to have a time of use rate or something on an EV rate is less attractive or needed because there isn't a price signal that can be provided to customers or a value for having them shift, at least at this time, right? As adoption increases to a much larger amount, then that changes. But I'm just thinking about in the now 1 year, 2 year time frame. Yeah, so again, what is the coincident peak that you found from your study, if you have that number?
Yeah, so we haven't done a study on coincident peak. That's a good place for us to continue to do. We love to do these visualizations. So we haven't done, but what we do see is that it really, again, depends on the rate schedule. And if you have time of use, if the utility rate payers understand what their time of use charges are, how big the differential is between their peak and off-peak charging, then we do see. So for example, for Peninsula Clean Energy, we did see that people were much more apt to allow us to manage the charging because they do have time of use rate schedules. Whereas for Rocky Mountain Power, they have flat rate schedules. So, we'd still manage the charging if they let us, but there's no benefit to them. So we try to give them benefit other ways, talking about you're helping the utility, you're helping the planet, you bought an EV to do all these great things. You didn't buy an EV to turn on gas peakers all over the West, right? So it just depends a little bit on where they're located, but that would be a great visualization for us to put together.
Thank you for the response.
All right, thank you, Laura. All right, and batting cleanup, last but not least, we have Eric with SemaConnect. Go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. Let me see if I can get my display to show full screen here. All right, can you see full screen here?
Yep, looks good.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. The list of attendees is quite the who's who of some folks I know. This is great. So thank you, and hope to meet some new ones here as well. So my name is Eric Smith. I'm 9 years regional manager in the Northwest, Hawaii, and Western Canada for SemaConnect. I'm also 9 years of being a 4-time electric vehicle owner during that entire time. So I've not gone an entire day without an electric vehicle for the last 9 years in our household. part of different associations, guest speakers, and also help manage over 16 utility accounts in the Pacific Northwest alone, Hawaii and Western Canada. SemiConnect, we make a level 2 charging station. We also are in the DC quick charge space as well. We have over 1,500 locations across North America. I won't get into all this, but yes, we make a charging station that does both networked and software management, load management, as well as it can also work as a dummy station as well too, or non-network station, whatever you want to call it. Kind of a big thing too is we've partnered with Gilbarco, which if you go to the gas station still, you might be using a Gilbarco gas pump. Well, we're working some deals out with them that our stations will be going nationwide, North America with Gilbarco as well. Just kind of a quick snapshot. We carry 3 main charging station products. One sort of the personal assigned multifamily type of a charging station. You put that in someone's stall like a condo, that sort of a situation. The 6 series is what we sell the most of. It's a shared public, commercial, workplace, hotel, apartment, retail type of a charging station. And then there's also the 7 series, which is our fleet stations, both available in 40 amp. And then big announcement, in a week or 2 weeks, we're going to announce our 80 amp version of fleet as well. And then also, which I don't have a slide or picture for, we're coming out with our, we'll be calling it the Series 4, which is our home charging station, which will have all the capabilities that all the utilities are looking for. I've let a few of them in on what this looks like. Contact me if you want more. And then also we're going to come out with a couple of new retail charging stations. They'll have like credit card readers as well and other utility factors as well. This is my fun picture for the kickoff, and that is this is my dream car. For those who know me, this is what I'm looking for, coming out next year, hopefully, and we'll go from there. So the things I want to cover real quick is this: planning of EV charging stations in general. Suggestion too of like, why not plan for 4-to-1 ratio of EV owners to EV charging stations? I've got some ideas for grant ideas with utilities that have been discussed, and a few of them have actually been implemented as well. What sort of features and challenges to avoid that EV owners actually look for and avoid when it comes to a charging station. We've covered a lot of that today. And then fleet usage and load management as well. These are the biggest questions I get a lot of times: is how many EV stations do we need? I'm going to say this as simple as possible. Our motto is, yeah, you can buy more stations, but really buying better stations should be the better way to go. Smart ones that, and I don't mean just smart, that's just like a clean use, but it's something that's sort of like looking at buying an iPhone 12 as a buying 4 iPhone 11s. You want something that will have the most robustness, current features and all that. Where to install stations? There's challenges. You put them, some places put multiple stations on multiple floors in a parking garage. EV owners really don't like that. They'd rather have all the stations clustered together, because there's benefits that stations have, which is wait list. So a growing thing is going to be where there's going to be more EVs than there are charging stations at a property. So you need to have a wait list. Well, just imagine being told station number 7 just became available, but you're looking at 4 stations in a parking garage. Very confusing for a lot of people, right? So, and then cellular repeater, Cat5 and Wi-Fi, I'll kind of leave this one alone. I won't jump into this one, but really cell signal is what EV owners are looking for. It's dependable. It keeps it off the IT security issue network. The issues with the IT folks, they don't want to have something hooked up to their network. And then also all drivers, gas car drivers, can also have cell repeater signal as well. And then what type of EV station? Again, something that has the most current features. Your EV owners are going to say, look at my electric vehicle. It does more things than anything I've ever driven before. So I want a station that can do as much as possible as well too, to keep up with it, right? But probably one of the biggest things here I want to bring up is this. This is something that we haven't talked about yet. Our data is actually showing something that we thought about would happen, and it's proving itself. So I want everyone to kind of think right now, when you fill up your gas car, tell me if I'm incorrect, gas car drivers wait until their car is down to about a quarter of a tank, and then they fill it up all at once. So if you're a gas car driver and you drive to the dealership and say, I'm ready for my electric vehicle, and you drive off the lot, there's nothing that's telling you you should fill up your car any different than all at once when you get down to about a quarter of a tank, right? We've been doing this for however long you've been driving, a decade, 2, 3, 40 years, whatever it is, right? And there are many people that are going to continue to do this no matter how much they might say, hey, there's benefits to plugging it in occasionally or this, that. So this once every about 4 days, our data is proving this is what more and more EV owners are doing, right? Therefore, this converts to, well, how many stations should I buy? Well, I'm going to take this pretty simple. If you have 100 parking spaces and people want to fill up once every 4 days, and let's just pretend 100 people drove electric vehicles on that property, it means you might only need 25% of your spaces filled with a level 2 charging station. 25 drivers would come in on Monday, fill up all day long. On a Tuesday, the next, would be group B, I guess, of drivers. Group C on Wednesday, and then group D on Thursday, and then group A would come back on Friday and repeat the process again. That's once every 4 days. That's a 4-to-1 ratio. I'm also going to say, though, it could even be better than 4-to-1. It could be up to around 6 and maybe 8. Because some people are going to be able to say, well, you know what, I've got a charging station at my workplace or where I live. So I have, instead of once every 4 days at work, I could say, hey, it was a little busy today, so I'll charge up at my apartment. So, and also there's things too, where if you have in a multifamily where people are fighting over the stations at night, from 6 p.m. on, there's going to be people that say, hey, I'm home during the day every Tuesday. That might be a great day for me to charge up my vehicle as well. So we're more than happy to sell more charging stations, but really understanding that our data is proving something that we thought would happen, but it's now happening. And that is, people are really plugging in once every 4 days. And again, the reason for that too is the ranges of the vehicles is going up. 250 miles is, kind of now the standard is going to be 300 and 400 coming out, right? But most people drive between 25 and 50 miles round trip daily in a metro area. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but 25 to 50 is your normal. So you either have a choice, either plug in every day for 2 hours and then try to find a way to move that car, or really encourage the driver to come in and say, do what you've done your entire life with your gas car. And that is come in on one day, whether it's at the workplace or your apartment, and charge all night long or all day long, and then come back in 4 days. And our data is already proving that people are doing this naturally. So we're kind of going with the flow of what the public wants and saying, maybe that might work, right? And it saves on having to buy more stations than you think you need to have as a property. And kind of pointing to, there was a utility, I'm not going to mention which one it was, but they were saying, hey, we're going to grant a charging station for 10 households. And I said, okay, that's great. However, that's 10 happy EV owners. What if you spun that around and said, we'll give 10 stations away to 10 workplaces? For the same, it's going to cost a little bit more money, but there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, the workplaces, while the grant might cover some of the cost, maybe not all of it, the workplaces will be like, hey, we've got plenty of power here. Yeah, we can do this. Secondly, we can get federal tax credits up to 30% to help cover the additional costs. And lastly, you put in one station at a workplace. And again, if that 4-to-1 ratio works out, that means you'll have 4 different drivers on 4 different days charging up all day long. You could get about 40 happy EV owners if you go that route, if you follow my math, right? Anybody doesn't understand, if you want me to slow down and cover that, I'd be more than happy to. But so we've had some utilities actually take this approach, and they are now getting the idea that, yeah, putting in the workplace where the person goes to every day actually gets more EV owners to be able to charge more often than just one per one household, right? Also, what do EV owners want in a charging station? This is some of the things that, as a 9-year EV owner myself, I talk to so many EV owners who say there are stations that we love and there are stations that we don't like. And maybe it's because of the features that are included or not, or restriction or being required to join a network, or one of the challenges is, hey, cars park in front of the station and then people don't move their car and there's no way to get them to move their car. I've actually accumulated a list. It's only one page, although I had to split it here, so it looks like 2, but there's one page. I'm more than happy to share this with anybody, but what this list is a readout of what EV owners are looking for. And it might help anybody here who is looking at charging stations. And you'll notice too, it's brand agnostic. There is no mention of any charging station on here. It's just, this is what EV owners who use public stations say, what I want is, if you want to do a free station, that's great, but can you make it free to a point? Like start charging the person to get them to move their car eventually. We don't like power sharing most times. I mean, because there's always gonna be that one chance where you've got to get to the airport or something came up during the day and you need to charge up your vehicle as quickly as possible and you can't get enough juice because you're stuck in a location that has power sharing. We don't want to be part of a network. I find any EV owner that says they love having 5 smart cards in their wallet. I don't think you'll find one, right? You want to have universal single method of payment, no network. Anyway, this is a list. I'd be happy to send this to anybody, but then you can take that and kind of go around and ask charging station manufacturers how they handle those and see what you come up with. And then lastly, so for load management and fleet services, we have both. As I mentioned, we have the fleet stations 40 amp, and then in a week or two, we'll have our 80 amps. But we also have with all of our stations that we have both existing already in the ground, for the last 9 years, and going forward, we'll have power management both on a static and dynamic, meaning if you want to do all of the panel, all of the stations, all of the breakers, and one sort of a methodology of power management, you can do that. Or if you want to do some breakers have one power management model and some don't, and some stations have one power management, you can do that as well too. So I think I'll kind of leave it at that. But yeah, no, I'll stress too that we do have a brand new home unit coming out here very soon. But if anybody has any questions, please let me know, and hopefully I didn't go over. So.
Right, thank you, Eric. I'll open it up to questions specific to Eric about anything he presented. And I'll note I'll also share a recording of this presentation and slides from those who had it with all of the registrants from this. So, and I'll include emails as well, so we can follow up with any of the speakers if you'd like. And then additionally, in this last 10 minutes or so that we have, I want to just open it up to, conversation or general questions. Could be for any of the speakers or any of the conversation. Also like to hear if there are any utilities that are doing anything else in this space that they would like to share. That would be awesome. And I'd also like to hear about kind of challenges or barriers going on. So I'll open up the floor to everybody, but so feel free to go in the chat, turn your mic on, or use the raise hand feature, and then we'll see what we get.
So this is Paul. I'm curious, are there other utilities out there that are instituting they own the electric vehicle public charging infrastructure? Any of y'all thinking about that or doing that currently for public charging? Marcos, it sounds like you're working. Oh, go ahead.
This is Rfid Emerald. We're pursuing that, Paul. We're doing the school district installations with workplace chargers at 4 different high schools. So we've been kind of stuck in permitting limbo for 3 or 4 months now, as we work to ensure they're all kind of ADA. All the parking is ADA compliant, and we just our building management folks or land management folks, the wildfires. So, but that's our plan, is to move forward with EPUD owned stations, also part of the ZEVI grants.
Yeah, Paul, this is Greg at City of Port Angeles. We're also going to be installing some charging stations that's going to be city owned.
So have you guys worked on your rate schedules yet? Have I convinced you to at least think about charging speed fees?
Oh, trust me, I'm thinking about that now. Thanks for the suggestion.
Good.
In fact, I'll probably be giving you a call at some point here in the not too distant future.
I'm here for it.
And Stu also shared in the chat that Ashland operates level 2 charging at 3 different sites.
This is Eddie with City of Forest Grove. We currently have 8 level 2, and we're adding 4 more.
This is one from me. We have 4 stations that are public. We're going through what the fee schedule will be. I would be interested to know if utilities, the ones in Oregon, are looking to cover their costs for not the infrastructure, but the energy through the fees that you may have, or if you are just thinking that the clean fuel credits, since they do cover those, that is enough, and you are looking at a reduced cost for that energy cost, either a low cost or perhaps even zero. Some considerations are if you go zero, then people may abuse it, so they may just leave their car parked there and then move it. So I would be interested just to hear what are your thoughts on the fee schedules for these stations, for those who have a station.
Juan, you were breaking up a little bit there. Your voice is kind of going in and out, but I think you were asking thoughts on folks that have these public charging stations, what their fee schedule is, and any considerations that they've given to that.
Yes, thank you. And taking into consideration the clean fuel credits and how they pretty much cover the costs of the providing the energy.
Yeah, Juan, Klatske is an Oregon utility as well, and we don't think of it as offsetting the energy usage. I think it's like, I forget who else mentioned it. The zero cost for energy sends really a bad signal. We think of it as help reducing the capital infrastructure cost and reinvesting in the expansion of public charging. So more a recovery of cost instead of an offsetting of operational expense for the energy. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Maybe for some of the folks who, your utility's just kind of dipping its toe in the water, you're just thinking about things, but not quite ready. Maybe you don't have buy-in from management or for whatever reason. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts of things that would help and things where we all could be useful areas.
So this is Marco, Salem Electric. So back to Paul and Juan. So I'm not holding back any information. We just have nothing to add because we haven't really discussed it, fully. We've kind of just mentioned, if we did this, put a charging station in a business or public area, are we going to charge how much or not charge at all? But we are kind of limited to public space in the sense that it's not really in a commuter's way onto something else. So we're kind of off of, the 5 freeway. And we actually don't tell anyone, but we don't even have a charger at our utility as far as for the members. So we're kind of in limbo there.
And I actually have a poll question I was going to do at the beginning that I forgot to do, so we can do it now. Just kind of get a reading of the room where folks are at. So sorry if you're calling in and won't be able to answer that, but just see where you're at with managed charging.
Hey, Connor, while we're doing that, I thought I might put one slide back up if that's okay.
Yeah.
It goes to this idea about the weekly charging. So if I can share just one more time, I can show that because you can see it in the data.
Yeah, could you stop sharing, Eric, so then Laura can pull her screen back up? Thank you.
Okay, this is one of the slides in the deck. Actually, it's just I pushed it to the back because we don't necessarily have time for all the slides. But you can see here on the upper left, this is what we call a periodic charger. These are the people that come home and they plug in. And I'm sorry, it's hard to see, but the charging is the blue, so you can see that little blue heartbeat kind of going through the data here. And you can see that they're short sessions. They come home, they plug in, and they just So we call those periodic chargers. Here, this is a charger. This is a vehicle that is charging what we call kind of the gas station model, or the empty battery chargers, where they still kind of carry this gas station model around in their head, and they bring the SOC way down, and then they charge way up, and they do it, you know, much more kind of on an as needed basis. And one of our sets of drivers from our Rocky Mountain Power project, they were only transportation network company drivers, meaning they use their vehicles to make money. So they're driving for rideshare companies. So, you know, again, it depends, right? We're going to have to deal with all kinds of different drivers, just like in the real world, there are all kinds of different drivers, and one model is probably not going to work for everybody. So just thought I'd show you that in the data.
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. And everyone, coming to the last minute or so here. So I know we've all been on for a while, so want to.
So what did the poll say?
Oh, sorry, you might not have been able to see it because
I was sharing.
Because you were sharing your screen, but it was about 30% for number one, planning or haven't planned, or sorry, 40% for haven't planned, 40% for planned but no projects, and then about 20% for have projects going on. So yeah, I want to thank first BEF for co-sponsoring these events, along with a lot of transportation electrification projects out there, and also want to give a thanks to our speakers, John, Laura, Eric, Paul, Marcos, and Travis. And definitely, if you have any questions, you can email me. Hope to see you all at future events in these. We'll have another one in a couple months. And yeah, if you have any topics you're looking at covering, shoot me an email and we can try to get it into the agenda. And if you want to present on any projects that your utility is doing as well, happy to have you. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.